Hello, my name is Aaron Briley, and I'm pleased to have the distinguished economist, Dr. Walter Williams. Dr. Williams holds a PhD in economics from UCLA. He is a John M. Olin Distinguished Professor of Economics at George Mason University. He is a prolific writer with over 150 publications in scholarly journals. Some of these include Economic Inquiry, American Economic Review, Georgia Law Review, and the Journal of Labor Economics. Dr. Williams frequently appears on talk shows and has a nationally syndicated weekly column that is carried by roughly 140 newspapers and several websites. Now, I could easily continue with his achievements, but we've likely run out of time before I'm done, so I'll simply end here. And without further delay, Dr. Williams, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Great. Now, there's so much happening in the world, it's really difficult to know where to begin. So I thought I'd give the audience some context and then ask my first question.
Okay.
Great. So in your autobiography, Up From the Projects, you describe how you were able to rise from such humble beginnings. You worked hard, took advice, focused on your education, and overcame obstacles. You lived during the Jim Crow laws and saw the civil rights movement unfold. Yet despite this, you still became successful. Now, contrast that with today, in 2020, we've had a Black president. We have Black high-ranking officials. We have successful Blacks in every area of society, yet many people claim that racism and racial discrimination are major obstacles to poor Black people. So my question for you, Dr. Williams, is, do you think this is true? And what do you see as the biggest problem causing Black underachievement?
Well, I think what we can safely say that the civil rights struggle in our country, it is over and it is won. That is, at one time, Black Americans did not have the same constitutional guarantees as every other American. Now we do. So in that sense, the civil rights struggle is over and won. But because the civil rights struggle is over and won, that does not mean that there are major problems affecting a large percentage of the Black community. And I think, and these problems don't have anything to do with racial discrimination. That is, roughly 75% of Black kids are born to single mothers. And matter of fact, this is very, very unusual among Black people. That is, in 1938, the illegitimacy rate among Blacks was 11%, and that among whites was 3%. Today, it's 75%, and among whites is over 30%. Now, illegitimacy, that's, being born and you don't know who or where your father is, that's not the best start in life. But we can't attribute it to racial discrimination. There's the breakdown in the Black family structure, where less than a third of Black kids live in two-parent families. And again, this is entirely new. In the 1880s, the black families were just as stable as Polish, as German, as Irish families. So the major problems that Black people face had nothing to do with discrimination. If you look at the various cities where Blacks live under some of the most horrible conditions, where many Blacks live under horrible conditions, where the schools are rotten. These are cities that have been run by Democrats for well over a half a century, and very often the chief executive was Black, the mayor, the superintendent of schools is Black, the chief of police is Black, but nonetheless, it's horrible conditions, and you cannot blame this on discrimination.
Okay, well, thank you. So what would you say then? So it seems these problems are internal to the community, at least now. So what do you think are the highest leverage actions that someone in these communities can take to improve his life?
Well, I'm 84 years old, and the advice that I got from my stepfather about how to get ahead in this world, he says, you got to come early and stay late. which means that you have to work hard. You have to make sacrifices, and if you work hard and make sacrifices, you'll find that you'll have a reasonably a good life. You won't live in gross poverty as so many people as a large percentage of black people live today. And then also, matter of fact, I wrote a column some years ago and said there are 4 steps that a person can take, whether he's black or white, that will guarantee that he will not live a life of poverty. 1 is to graduate from high school. 2, to take any kind of job. 3, get married before you have children. And 4, stay out of the criminal justice system. And if you look at census statistics, and you find a group of people, if you can isolate them that way, you'll find that they're not poor. Also, it turns out that the poverty rate for black people in general is around 30%. But if you look at married couples, black married couples, the poverty rate has been in single digits for well over 2 decades or more. And so you find that so many of the problems has to do with people not being responsible. And I might also point out that there's no more material poverty in the United States. That is, poor people have microwave ovens, cell phones, color TV, internet, and all that kind of stuff. But there's a new kind of poverty, and that's poverty of the spirit, where people have decided to be engaged in self-destructive ways, to become dependent instead of independent. So I think when we talk about poverty in the United States, we can't talk about material poverty. We don't have anything like Ethiopia and Bangladesh and many other countries. And matter of fact, our poor in our country, many times, they are better off than middle-class people in other countries around the world.
All right, thank you. So I guess my final question is going to refer to Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter, is positioning themselves as the solution to the alleged problem of police brutality. And BLM, Black Lives Matter, wants to defund the police. What do you think of this proposal and of Black Lives Matter in general?
Well, I think that the proposal to defund the police has to be one of the most ridiculous proposals around. And we see some of the effect of the attack on the policemen with the huge uptick in murder and crime in black communities. I'm not excusing any of the behavior, any of the bad behavior of policemen, but policemen are not the problem of blacks. If you look at Chicago, for example, it turns out that this year there have been close to 500 homicides, and most of the victims and perpetrators are black. And it turns out that in Chicago, the police have this year so far, they've killed 3 people and wounded 4 other people. And so if you compare the gross slaughter of blacks by blacks, and if you look at the killing by policemen, it's no comparison. It's a non-starter. Now, which is, again, I'd like to stress that there are policemen that are bad apples, that they ought to be removed from the force. But again, cops are not the major problem that black Americans face, and that's what the Black Lives Matter movement suggests, that is black, it's bad cops. And matter of fact, in many of these cities, where a lot of where there's a lot of killing, as I said before, it turns out that the mayor is black, the superintendent of schools is black, and the chief of police is black. And so I believe in Chicago, the chief of police is black. And so you just don't get very far attributing many black problems to the behavior of police.
Okay. And as far as Black Lives Matter in general, yeah, it seems like all their focus is on what people are calling today systemic racism and institutional racism. Do you have any thoughts on that?
When people use the terms institutional or systemic racism, it suggests that they can't find a person who is actually a racist. But it's just that they can't name a racist behavior, so they just call it institutional or systemic racism. That is the fact that maybe blacks cannot get jobs, or they'll blame it on systemic racism, as opposed to the very poor quality education that black people are getting, such as in the case in Baltimore several years ago. It turns out that of 39 high schools in Baltimore, in 9 of them, not a single kid tested proficient in math, and in the 9 other schools, only 1%, and across the city, 15% tested proficient in reading and writing. And so, if you have those kind of academic achievement, you're going to find it very, very difficult to get a job. But the tragedy of it is that these black kids and their parents, they do not know that their kids are receiving a fraudulent education. That is, a black kid graduates from high school, and you'll see that a white kid graduates from high school, and the white kid is getting a job or getting promotion that he's not. They'll say, well, my degree, I get a high school diploma, and the white kid has a high school diploma, but he's being treated differently than I. And so they'll blame it on racism rather than blame it on a fraudulent education that he's received. And so I think that to focus on what Black Lives Matter focuses on, I think that's not a meaningful agenda for black people. And moreover, I would say that the Black Lives Matter movement is more or less it's a communist, it's a Marxist movement in the United States, and a whole lot of it is being engineered by young white socialists in our country that are trying to change the system.
Wow, wow. Well, thank you very much. This has been a great interview, and I really appreciate your time. So I think I'll end it here. And once again, thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.